Good evening and good evening to you, WeatherBrains fans. WeatherBrains episode 1003. This is the pre-show, the magical, marvelous time, where we typically do three things. We share boring personal stories, humorous anecdotes, and from time to time, we say some really outrageous things. And this part of the show is not on the audio podcast, the produced version that goes out to the world. This is exclusively for you that dare to watch us on the YouTube. So bring some other folks in here that are waiting. For those that are looking for the actual show to begin, move the slider over about 7 minutes, and you will be able to find it. Pastor Murray, what's the sermon on tonight?
Revelations, some other fun things.
Okay. That's it's either a preacher suit, a banker suit, or a funeral home suit. One of the three.
Or a CEO search committee suit.
Well, that too, but it's a bad look for me. Whenever I wear a suit, I look like a funeral home director or a banker guy. It's nothing wrong with being a banker guy, but it's just not a good look for me.
That's not true.
I look much better in T-shirts and cargo shorts. And I don't look good in blue jeans. The other thing that just is bad for me, it's blue jeans. It's a bad look.
I've never seen you in blue jeans.
I have not worn a pair of blue jeans in probably 25 years. It's just bad. I mean, for some guys look good in them. It's not good for me. So I stick with the cargo shorts. If it's 15 below zero, I'm in cargo shorts. What you need to do is go watch the Mike Leach video on cargo shorts. That man, I miss Mike Leach so badly.
Oh, yeah.
But Coach Leach understood the value and the importance and the merit of cargo shorts. And it was just out. My heart to this day, if I'm ever down and feeling bad, I'll go watch the Mike Leach cargo shorts video. So it's good. And I'm probably the only guy in this whole show that wears cargo shorts. Everybody else is in the professional clothes. In fact, if it was up to me, I'd be wearing cargo shorts right now.
But I don't know if I have any cargo shorts.
You need to just get an introductory pair and just try it.
That sounds like a good idea, James. I think I'll order some right now.
You just go to cargoshorts.com and
I wonder if there is such a thing. You
will
know
be able
there
to
is.
put more stuff. You will put more stuff in those pockets than you
cargo
everything you would ever need for 2 weeks. You can put in those pockets.
Don't do it. It's a trap.
No. It's a good trap. I'm trying to start this man on a good road here.
Because it forwards to something called weekendersportswear.com.
Oh no! I just made that URL. I made that URL up. I didn't know it actually existed.
We should have put John Olshoe on that. We'd have had that. We'd have had that domain.
That's right.
James.
We could have owned it. No, it's like everything I buy. It's the cheapest. Like these shirts. I know some people that wear shirts that cost $200. No, it's just like I'm in school lunchrooms every day, and inevitably some kid's going to barf on me or throw chocolate milk on me. I eat like a third grader, so I buy the cheapest white shirts, and when they get all stained and stuff, you just throw them away and go to the next one. So it's I've never been a fancy clothes person. Maybe I should be. I don't know.
That's what we are tonight.
Yeah. Well, but Bill Murray started it because for those. Well, this is not on the podcast.
Did I start it, or did you start it?
Well, no, you're wearing the suit. I mean, you rarely ever look that way. Yeah, I mean, you rarely ever look that way.
Working me too hard these days, man.
Well, that's what we do here. All right,
big day tomorrow. I get out from under a big responsibility that's taken 4 months.
Nice.
It's a big day.
Okay. And by the way, one pro tip on the shirts. So I have a colleague that works next door to my office in this next office over here, and he's been wearing these shirts that are like 2 sizes too small for him. I mean, they are tight. And he went viral one of the last severe weather events we did with all the young ladies that loved his tight shirt look.
Bet they did.
So Evan went totally viral. I mean, you ought to see the creepers that he showed me some of the stuff. So if you're going to wear a
is he
shirt,
enjoying
just,
this, or is he?
I think at first he
James,
did,
go,
but it's morphed,
man, go.
It's morphed into something ugly. Yeah, no, look, I can take you to the gun show. Come on now. I mean, I know what you're thinking. He's some old guy.
Get
Creeper guy.
Shirts.
Guns
two
out,
sizes
guns
too
out.
small.
You got
Keep this
that
up.
right,
We'll be on
baby.
Cinemax next week. So
Skinamax.
Oh my word!
Oh boy. We taking it. Like I say, this is the pre-show. This is what we do here.
we gotta. I've got to mention my buddy John Gordon down at the bottom of the screen here, because what did I tell you in the car 2 weeks ago? We got a couple of minutes. What did I tell you in the car?
You told me doors are going to open.
And let me ask you a question without details. We'll save it. Have some doors opened?
Significantly.
Thank you, sir.
What? Man,
We're
that's
through.
a
We're not going to
tease.
discuss that topic anymore. So
I have to buy, I got to buy James Spann shirts. That's what I'm going to do as soon as I leave here. I'm going to go out to the mall before they close.
Just break in. They're cheaper.
Let's see if I can.
We've already lost control. We who started.
No, it's in the pre-show. Yeah.
Let's see here.
I'll accept blame.
Boy, what a bunch of storms Saturday night. I was watching stuff in North Mississippi and Northwest Alabama, and that was amazing Saturday night.
Yeah, it was a rough weekend. See, I mean, I need a shirt like 2 sizes smaller, 2 sizes too small, and I will tell you. I mean, I go to the gym every day. You're thinking you think I've got noodle arms. You watch this, you think I got noodle arms, but Evan and I think the next time we do severe weather together, I'm going to go 2 sizes too small on the shirts like that and see if I can compete against the guy.
They go for that with me. We're going to need a bra, so I'm telling you now. Sorry.
And right as the television audience joined us, that's the first thing they heard.
Timing. You should do coverage in a fake German accent like Hans and Franz from Saturday Night Live.
Welcome to our television audience here. Obviously, we have no weather. We can sit back and breathe and relax and enjoy a moment of levity here. So let's see. Are our guests here, Bill?
Yeah, let's make sure that Ron can hear us. Ron?
He just hopped off. I think his
he hung up on us.
We may have no guests. We've gone from 2 guests to no guests. So
is that a record?
Absolutely not.
No,
he was having video problems, I think.
Oh, sure.
No, he was having host.
Sounds good. Yeah.
Possibly host problems.
Yeah.
Talking about Troy and abroad.
When he asked, could you just call me? That should have been my first sign.
He just left to get a new shirt. He was embarrassed.
That's probably it.
That's right.
Oh boy. So we'll start the show anyway here, because we just start the show and whatever happens. You know, it's kind of like watching a car chase on Los Angeles television. It's just you never know what's around the bend here. All right, so
I'm not sure I ever asked Jared Rennie to be on. Did I ever ask him, Jen?
You did, and did you send him the invite?
Yeah. I sent he and Ron both the invite about 5 o'clock.
He quote tweeted us.
Somebody's audio is getting funky here.
Is that me?
Funky. No, it's probably Ron. Hey, Ron.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we hear you loud and clear.
I'm trying to get my video up here and having problems with it.
Well, you're fine with this if you can't, so don't stress over it.
All right, here we go in 5.
You're listening to WeatherBrains. They're kind of a big deal.
WeatherBrains episode 1003. How about that? Weekly show all about weather. This is for April the 7th, 2025. And goodness gracious, it has been a busy series of days for Folks that work down here in the deep south, we've had it all: flooding, tornadoes, runs, hits, and errors on this. Hello, John.
Yes, sir. Yeah, we had a lot of weather. A lot of weather. We had an EF3 a half a mile from my house.
What? What?
Yes.
Goodness gracious. Now, I saw a photograph of like a Chick-fil-A. You can kind of explain that picture.
You know, they were all obsessed with that. So I went up there. They could probably fry me a waffle fries or whatever. It was just a facade and the roof. But there's this area of East Louisville called the Bluegrass Industrial District, and a lot of warehouses, metal warehouses, concrete warehouses, and they imploded. They actually caved in. The trusses broke. So the Weather Service went EF3 145, I think.
So were you home when this happened, John? The tornado
No, I've
near
got a
you?
new gig on a TV station that I do severe weather analysis for. So I was there worried about my house.
It was that stint on the live stream you did with us, John. They were sold.
They did. They actually loved that.
How many
That
times
is
did you
true.
say hit the deck? I want the over and under on how many times you said it.
I wore a good shirt and then I said hit the deck.
I don't want to copy John Gordon, James, but I thought that was pretty good. Hit the deck.
Yeah. No, that's a good look. Look, he's good. He's the absolute best. Well, well, I'm glad you're safe and you had no damage.
Thank you.
But it's been rough. How much rain did you have up there, John?
7.5 here in Louisville. The office had 8. The winner was in Western Kentucky, Graves County, which is Dawson Springs. It was hit by the big tornado December 21.
Yeah.
It had 15 and change.
You know,
John,
James, you saw Memphis, Nashville, Little Rock. I mean, major, all the listeners there, cataclysmic flooding.
Memphis WFO, I think, had at the WFO, not at International Airport, but at Memphis WFO, I think they had 13 inches, something like that, 12 to 13. Yeah.
But John, and we're going to, everybody else needs to.
By the way, James, real quick, that I'm told late this afternoon by someone in the Weather Service that would know, would be 1,000-year flood for Memphis. That'd be a 1,000-year. Yeah.
Talk about the fatigue that meteorologists have that have to work a multiple day event with rounds and rounds of heavy rain and flooding and storms. It wears on you. It really does.
Oh, it sure does. And we're all talking to our host here, the best of them all. I've seen you go 9 hours without going to the bathroom, James. You're amazing. Yeah. So when you can get in these, I always tell people the worst type of severe weather event is when you get a quasi-stationary front. Yep. They're never good, ever. And when they oscillate, they move a little north, south, west, south, and then you get short waves on top of them. This big Atlantic Bermuda Ridge would not move, and we were stuck. All of the Mid-South was stuck.
Well, you know, one thing too, John, is that is a factor in South Central Texas in the climatology. You look at flash flood climatology in South Central Texas, exactly what John said. It's going to be a front and just sitting there as a focal point for the lift, and these disturbances move up and down that thing. And that is part of our climatology with flash floods, South Central Texas.
I mean, James, you have the most energy of anyone I know on TV. How do you handle days and days of this?
Well, I think it's just a matter of focus for me and busyness. I don't have time to think about the human impact at the time of the event. I'm so focused and so busy on looking at data and trying to communicate a coherent story. You don't, but you don't have time to get tired. And the minute it's over, you're just going to drop. I mean, you're done. You're toast. You've got to have a mental break. You've got to have a physical break. But I know that Louisville and Memphis and Little Rock, the National Weather Service Mets, the private sector, the television side, everybody just has to be totally exhausted. And even down here, it finally reached my world over the weekend. We only had 2 days of it, but it was tiring after 2 days. And I'll say this, I was down in last night in Spanish.
I've been on TV when it sounded like I hit puberty. I don't know if that's what was happening just now, but we can't hear you.
Your audio's bad. Your audio's bad,
Your
James.
audio's bad.
You're in and out.
We lost everything you said.
Seriously, you pulled a Cameron Nixon.
I think Ron muted you.
Yeah.
Who's Cameron Nixon? I don't understand.
Yes, you do, Troy.
No, I don't.
Remember when Cameron was on and he was in West Texas and every time he would start talking,
yes, I do.
his
Too.
audio,
I'm sorry.
I
do remember that. I was trying to think. I thought it was some big movie star here in the United States or something.
It only cuts out when he's making a good point.
Right? It was only that.
Exactly. It's the same thing with
He said
James.
he went somewhere, and then I don't know where he went.
All right. So Bill, can you hear me now?
Yes. Now you're loud and clear.
That was great.
Yeah, because it's like I thought at first it was one of you guys. I was hearing that weird Cameron Nixon kind of audio, but I have restarted.
Where did you go last night? Where did you go? You started to tell us. I went to
Spanish Fort. So I heard that. Spanish Fort.
I was in Baldwin County, Alabama, which is one of the coastal counties in this state. And I spoke at an elementary school down there this morning, but Spanish Fort, which is in Baldwin County, had over 1 foot of rain. They had 13 inches. So even in South Alabama, we had some horrific flooding problems. It's been, I think we're all ready for a break here. So, but let's kind of go out west. Rick Smith, good to have you back. How are you, sir? How is, I guess most of this was what, east of you?
Good. Yeah. We had several busy days. I mean, we're nothing compared to what Little Rock and Memphis and Paducah and all the offices east of us had, but yeah, so a little bit here. All my family, all of our family is still in the Memphis area, East Arkansas, North Mississippi, West Tennessee. So it was a busy time giving them the personalized text message warnings. And my brother lives in Tate County, Mississippi, just south of Memphis. He had an EF3 tornado a mile north of his house. And then my brother-in-law lives in West Memphis. They got about 13 inches of rain in their house. They got water in their house and flooded vehicles. So yeah, plenty of events close to home.
Did you hear about the Senatobia tornado and the outdoor sirens and that whole story? Or
I read a little bit about it.
It was interesting because, you know, the county sent out an alert over their text system that apparently got a lot of people's attention and maybe saved some lives. But
yeah, that's
they
good.
were all complaining about the outdoor sirens not working. But
well,
I'll tell
redundancy.
That's
you got to have multiple ways to get a warning. So
sirens
should not be one of them.
Yeah, exactly.
I got to tell you, Rick, National Weather Service Memphis did an amazing job, and we had 6 fatalities in Selmer, Tennessee, and that's unfortunate. It was in the middle of the night, midnight to 1 a.m. I see Jared nodding his head, and that's just so much we can and we can't do about that. But I'm going to tell you, National Weather Service in Memphis saved lives this last weekend.
Oh, and shorthanded too.
No doubt. Yep. Little Rock did too. Little Rock was, well, lots of offices are shorthanded, but Little Rock actually brought in 2 people from other offices to help supplement their staffing. I think Memphis brought in 1. But yeah, John, you talked about it earlier. These day after day, prolonged severe weather events. Memphis, I can't believe they surveyed as much as they did because it just never stopped. And yeah, I checked in with several people in the Memphis office. I know a few people there, and man, that's tough. So I'm glad. Well, they're not getting a break because it's not over. The event never ends. The surveys will go on forever. They've got, if you look at the temporary tornado tracks on the damage assessment toolkit, they've got, I don't know, they got a lot of surveying yet to do. But God bless them.
One thing too, Rick, that's so good, and I'll tell you about this toward the end of the show, but when I get to my pick of the week, but I'm hearing also that Weather Service people went out of their CWAs to help with surveys in the last couple of days. And you know what? Damn good job, Weather Service. Go out there. Let's get this done. If someone has to cross those county lines or parish lines, then more than that. And I want to thank, because I think Jackson may have done that.
Jackson.
I know that Huntsville did some work when Memphis was so busy, and I say salute to the Weather Service. They have gone out of the way in a rough time right now.
Yeah. I was ready to go. I mean, it's 5.5 hours to get to the west side of Memphis' CWA, but yeah, hats off to them.
Yeah, I agree with Troy. Memphis, Nashville, the Jackson office, Nashville, Paducah, St. Louis. This thing was massive. And then the Deep South got it with the severe weather. I'm telling you, the Weather Service is using Rick mutual aid big time for survival because of the staffing. Well done.
That's the only way we're going to get by now, unfortunately. I mean, it's not a cool gee whiz, nice to do thing. It's going to be a survival thing. So yeah, hats off to everybody, all those offices. Hope they get some rest.
I'll talk about pick of the week, but I was asked a question today by the media in the Dallas-Fort Worth area earlier today, and do you think we're going to see effect as far as public safety is concerned? And I said, ultimately, probably we will. But I said, right now it's not happening. And the only reason it's not happening is because the men and women of the National Weather Service and the ones closest to the people, the WFOs, and them going out of their way to cover for each other, they will not allow it to happen, as far as I'm concerned, based on the Weather Service people I know.
Let's go to our social scientist. Kim, what are your thoughts on this event?
Well, as much as it's hard to have the cogent thought with everything that's going on, I think in ordinary times, this is the kind of event that I would really want to go out and learn from. And there'd been conversations internally with our social science folks about trying to stand up better post-event capabilities to evaluate how things go. Right now, what we're trying to think about is how can we support this short-staffed weather service? Is there something we can be doing to fill gaps in messaging? So I look at this kind of event, and it's, the social science part of me probably isn't as useful as just the human part of me that feels awful that it's happening like this. As I was watching the event, I was looking at things like the reports coming in, marveling that they were. So understanding the heroic efforts that have gone on to make that happen, that's incredible. And especially when you've got the same place day after day that's getting hit. It's very, very hard to undertake that work. I was talking with Patrick March today at SPC about the reports, and he was making that point that this is hard in normal circumstances to be getting high quality reports and to be doing that groundwork. So what's going on right now, it's nothing short of heroic, and that's both my as a person hat and as a scientist hat. Hats off to everybody.
And Bill, I'm going to let you pick it up here for a second. I'm still working on my audio issues here, so I'll be right back. Bill, you pick it up.
Yeah, sorry, James, I didn't see your message there. My fault. First, I'll say tonight's guest panelist is Jared Rennie, research meteorologist at NOAA's National Centers for Environmental Information in Asheville, North Carolina. He's an AMS certified consulting meteorologist who's passionate about data, accessibility, climate services, and applying new technologies like AI and machine learning in the world of weather. Jared, you wrote us a real nice email after show 1000. It's always nice to hear from you. And I thought I'd invite you to come on and be the guest panelist tonight. And we talk about some of the things you did just a little bit later, maybe right before or after the break. So welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. As someone that sort of, was part of a flooding event 6 months ago in North Carolina, I certainly feel for the folks in parts of Western Kentucky and Tennessee and that whole area. And then also as a federal employee, I feel for the Weather Service and all the work they're doing, because I agree they did a really kick-butt job for this. And if anybody in the Weather Service or anyone in NOAA needs any support, I have with me, for the feds, they'll know what this means, but I have, we all got an email earlier this year about a fork in the road, and I have with me what I like to call my emotional support fork. So I've got that. I'm holding on to this for dear life right now. So
I was gonna say, I love that the word forked has been introduced into our lexicon. Like, hey, they forked, or yeah. There's.
We don't say the F word. We don't say the F word.
Show title.
Well, Jared, just hang in there, and and please feel free to participate in the conversation here. But we'll circle back after the recorded segments, and want to ask you a few questions. And it's good to have you here. So I'll move on to introduce our guest for tonight. Tonight's guest is Ron Foster, a prolific author and Southern preparedness expert who's written over 75 novels. And all these novels blend gripping survival scenarios with real world lessons drawn from his previous training in emergency management. His work spans everything from tornadoes and hurricanes to grid down solar flare events, and his storytelling offers a uniquely grounded Southern approach to self reliance and resilience. Ron, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Honored to be on.
Well, excited to be talking to you, DK Harris, who's a friend of yours, and it looks like maybe your publicist is pretty famous in our circles because he brought Wet Willie, one of James Spann's and my favorite artists of all time,
Jimmy Hall,
onto the show, and we had a blast with him. So whenever DK reaches out, we get back to him pretty quickly. So it's nice to have you on the show tonight.
Thank you. I appreciate DK too.
Yeah, he's a pretty cool guy. So talk to us for a minute where you live and where you call home these days.
I'm moving back to Troy, Alabama. I'm currently in Montgomery. I came down to take care of my mother for a couple of years. She passed, and now I'm trying to move back to the house in Troy. Of course, nature took over, and you don't want to leave anything closed up for a couple of years in Alabama. You get mildew and everything else.
Yeah, we got a little bit of humidity down here, that's for sure. So talk to me for a minute about, about how you got into this. You've written over 75, preparation themed books. What originally inspired you to start writing in this genre?
Well, I had background in emergency management, and during the courses, they always ask, why don't people prepare? The government spends all these millions of dollars. So it's kind of my way of putting the word out there and teaching people things. They'll remember it better, reading it in a book, comparing characters rather than reading a dry survival book, which they forget as soon as they look at it, it seems. So I'm big in the prepper community and always participated with them, and we do meets, and I've been very well received in that.
Well, Ron, we were down in Gulf Shores, Alabama, and beautiful resorts, and a couple of weeks ago, and they came out with a text message, and they said, hey, there's a citywide outage of the internet and phone service. I don't know how I got this text, but anyway, they were not kidding. And for the entire night, we had no phone service and we had no internet. And I really was beginning to think, this is what it would feel like if we had one of these events. And then DK introduced us to you. For the first time in my life, I thought about becoming a prepper, Kim Cloco McLean, after going through that experience, because I thought we are that close to oblivion. I couldn't get in my hotel room because I didn't get a hard key. I used the digital key. I couldn't text the front desk, even though I guess I could have walked up there and gotten it to get my car. I couldn't do anything. Now, my new iPhone has now you've got satellite contact information, and that was pretty cool. Someone out stood on the deck, but immediately, it's like your person you're trying to text does not have this update on their phone. Kim's going to weigh in here. Oh, she's going away. Probably to take care of her puppy dog. That Kim's back.
There's a small child that may be joining us.
Oh, good. Well, we always welcome small children because that's what most of us are.
Yeah, exactly. I'm already here.
It's another good show title.
Yeah.
So Ron, it made me realize that night how close we are to disaster at any given point. Ah, look at there. Don't be muted, Kim.
All right. Can you say hi to everybody?
Hi.
Hello. Our newest panelist.
Yeah. Well, can you tell them what you have on your shirt? Who's on your shirt? She's not sure.
She's
many
enamored with the camera.
Yeah, she is. So many people.
It's like Hollywood Squares around here.
Yep.
She's going to mute you, Mom, or unmute you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's good to see you.
Yes. Well, so sorry, Bill. You had a prompter question for me.
I thought you were going to say something about, the satellite texting. That really is going to be kind of a life-saving event. We saw this, Jared, after Hurricane Helene, didn't we?
Yeah, that's correct. And I have you mentioned prepping, and I have definitely started gathering some stuff in my garage just in case the next one happens.
Yeah, it's a serious thing, and I had never seriously considered it. So Ron, take us through what that term means, and how seriously people should be taking this, on a day-to-day basis in their lives.
Well, a prepper is basically just somebody that prepares for a disaster. You know, you have a little offshoot of that. Some people call them survivalists that go out for more bushcraft or guns or whatever. But the government puts out, that everybody needs at least 72-hour kit. You need to have more than that. They up that to 2 weeks worth of food instead of the 3 days that they used to do. And I notice Europe now send out pamphlets to 450 million people in the Union. They need to start getting prepared for different things. And if you think back, our grandparents, etc., they were basically preppers. They had pantries full of food, and they were good to go for a little while. When the job loss or power outages, snowstorms, whatever goes on. People must take care of their own. They expect government to take care of them, and that's a big mistake.
So I have a question, Ron, for you. So if you're not used to being a prepper and you're like first being introduced to it, what are some of the basic steps to kind of get you going? And I know for me, I've done just little bits. I have a solar generator. I don't have a house generator. And I also have starter food, that it's just good to have. You don't know when things are going to happen. And, a lot of those things have a shelf life for decades. And so I do have some of that type of stuff. But what are some things that you would recommend for folks who are just kind of dipping their toe into this concept?
Well, basically, you need to say 1 gallon of water per day per person. That's including your washing and what you need to drink. The kits, a lot of people buy like the buckets of preparedness type food that are quite popular. Those are mostly vegetarian. You got to watch what you're getting in those things. I like playing with freeze-dry wholesalers. I've been doing this for a while, so I've got steak and everything else in mine. We found out during COVID, great toilet paper shortage. So everybody, you have to have backups to your backups.
Hey, Ron, this is John. I'm amazed by your books and the preparedness. The first thing you said was water. So I think about that a lot. I watched video after video after video of people driving through interstates in water up to their cars. I saw people go around barricades, people risking their life to walk through water that's flowing at 10 miles an hour. So now you're talking to a bunch of communicators in weather here. What can we do? We've lost so many people from flooding, right? James, I see nodding. Rick, the preparedness genius, Jen and James. What can we do, Ron, that we're not doing to get people? I was stunned. There were hundreds of cars driving through that one road in Arkansas. And I was just shaking my head. What advice do you have for the WeatherBrains listeners in America?
Well, it's difficult. They've been telling people for years, don't drive across the water. Of course, they drive, and if they are going to be doing something like that, stick your windows down. At least be able to get out of the car. Having a bunch of water against a car door is like having a bunch of rocks. People don't prepare. Even Hurricane Gulf prone coast, they say, "Hey, get ready for the hurricane." We've all been through it. They don't prepare. I was surprised to find out the emergency managers that only like 65% of them had a to-go bag. And that was amazing to me when I found that statistic out. Audio working?
Yes, yes, it is. You
Okay.
know, it's one of those things where we're all just thinking, gosh, it is a real challenge. It is a real challenge. Inspiring people to prepare and being prepared ourselves. Sometimes our day to day just takes over so much, and it's hard to break through in the cadence of life to help people to look to that future. I think one of the things I'm curious about, I want to go back to a point that you made a couple minutes ago. We were talking about the importance of having different kinds of supplies on hand to just be ready. If you're talking about water, is there anything you've learned about the right storage of it? It's something people don't tend to think about. If you buy a pre-made thing of water, it's all vacuum sealed and everything, it might be different than if you were to try to put drums of water together on your own. What have you learned about water? I ask from a place of having gone through some prepperism myself in the past and learned that there's actually some tricks to this.
Oh yes, you can buy like ozone to put in the water barrels, your 55-gallon drums. That's up to 7 years on that is your storage. If you want to do it basically on your own, you can use Clorox, and you get about 3 years out of that. You know, a lot of people overlook there's things called a water bob. That's a basically a big bladder that fits into your bathtub, and that gives you a lot of water. So when you hear something like storm's coming, that's when you fill that up, or you fill it up before the event. If you're on gravity feed water, you can still get some if you're lucky. Water is a great equalizer. If the municipal water goes out, everybody kind of heads for the water hole, and it's like in Africa, the predators are there too, waiting on the animals there. You don't want to get in that position. I have many ways of getting water. People don't think about collecting water during a period of time too, so it's good to have a water filter on hand. You can get those small hand ones, cheap, inexpensive on Amazon. You can get one for every member of the household for about $30 or something like that nature. They're good for like 5,000 gallons, or you can get a bigger version of them. Knowing how to purify water in a disaster is something that everybody needs to know. How many drops of Clorox that you would use, or if you're using iodine, etc. Boiling water is the easiest way. People forget that, but you'll see boil water warnings out after a disaster.
Yeah, those are all really good hints. And I saw Jared the whole time, having gone through this in Asheville, just nodding along. Yeah, you learned a lot about water, didn't you?
Yeah, and in some cases I learned the hard way. So for context, Ron, I live in Asheville, North Carolina, that was hit really hard by Helene about 6 months ago, and we had the problem of not the municipal water going out in the city of Asheville. So we actually didn't have water for about 4 to 5 weeks, and then once it actually came back in, it wasn't potable. So it was really only for basically toilets and such. So we actually had the National Guard and emergency management come in, and they gave us these special boxes of water that have a 10-year shelf life. Wow. They had a weird taste to it. It was kind of gross, but it was at one point, it was like the only water we had. And we actually have some of that in our basement still, because it has a 10-year shelf life. And the other thing too is, but even before they came, because it takes a few days for them to come in after a disaster. So we were thinking about the water, like you were talking about. Do we boil it? Do we have a purifier? We didn't at the time, but we also had to, have 2 different kinds of water because we had no water for toilets. So we bought a bunch of Home Depot and Lowe's buckets, and we had basically a bucket next to the toilet that we were using. I know it's kind of gross, but that was part of what we had to deal with for a few weeks. I don't really have a question. I'm kind of
a lot of people forget that there's in your hot water tank, for example, there's a drain valve at the bottom. You get water out of that. Yep. The water in back of the toilet you could actually drink, you only can live 3 days without water. And a lot of people don't realize that. You can go a long time without food, but that water you have to have.
Yeah, that's true. The local fire department was telling us about that, using your, because even for a lot of folks, the electric was out too, so you didn't want, that water just sitting there. So they told people to drain it. You did mention food. So I guess I would ask, what kinds of food would you have storing? We had some MREs sent in, and we've got some canned goods. But do you have any advice on what kinds of things we should be looking for?
Yeah, MREs are good for like 5 years if you store them correctly. That's the shelf time. That actually they're better. Canned food, as long as the can is not bulging or anything of that nature, you're good to go with it. Like Spam, they have a coated can. I've eaten 20-year-old Spam before.
Ooh.
Troy
Show
eats
title.
20-year-old Spam every week.
Yeah. But I mean, they have the kits out there that you can buy, emergency essentials, etc. Sells in Patriot Supply. If you want to go full blown, they got MRE Depot. They sell leftover military MREs, but they also have the canned freeze dry stuff. That's 25-year, 30-year shelf life. You could spend a lot of money on it, but I look at it as an investment. Especially I'm up in age now, so that's my retirement plan. I got a ton of food. Beans and rice is your basics for preppers. That's what you start with if you don't have much money. That makes a perfect protein.
Yeah, I mentioned earlier that we had some experience doing preparing activities, and I don't know if all of you guys even know this. I know my close friends here do, but all of this is something I learned in the turn of the millennium with Y2K. We were one of those houses that prepared, just in case. And my folks were biologists, so they knew how to chemically treat the water. We had huge 50-gallon containers of water in our basement, and just sort of stacked. And it really is crazy when you do the calculation how much water you need. Like, it's a lot of water, and that stuff goes fast. So when you're thinking about what's the most expedient thing to do, if you need to prepare on a short period of time, getting big drums and filling them with water and treating them is a really smart thing to do. And yeah, that bean paste, we were going through that for a while. Yum. Some things we didn't finish. Some things were just allowed to gracefully expire. But it's good to have some of those things on hand. You just never really know what you're going to face. You never know when it's going to be your turn.
Oh yeah. Well, when you hear something that's happening, a hurricane coming up or things of this nature, fill every pot and pan in the house, fill the bathtub, and you'll have some water. That's it's expedient. That'll get you by till hopefully the guard comes in or things of that nature. But you need a water filter. You need to observe where could you get water around you in your community. Know the difference between somebody's got a saltwater pool next to you versus a regular kind of pool.
You raise an important point right there, Ron. The pool, can be an important source of water for flushing toilets and things like that. But you just raised something I hadn't thought of. What if it is a saltwater pool?
Well, basically, you're going to distill it. You can take like a big spaghetti pot that's got a lid handle on it, flip that over, tie a cup to it like a coffee cup, and as the steam goes up and condenses, it'll come down the cup, and you can drink it that way. That's one of the easier ways of desalinating water. You can put, like on the beach, you can take a big salad bowl, put a small salad bowl in it, the water around it, and put cellophane on top, let the sun do your work for you. There's a whole bunch of, you can dig solar stills. In my book, Prepper's Road March, had a FEMA manager. I was pretending that book going up for a job interview when the solar flare hit. And he's talking to his buddy about, where we're going to get water because the city turns into a desert, when all the power goes out. And those clear garbage bags that go in the cans, you can put that over a tree, tie it off, sun will heat it up. That's a tree transpiration still. The water will collect in the corners of the bag.
Okay, I'm loving this. I'm getting some good tips here. This is some good stuff. Now, what else did y'all talk about while I had to be away for a second? Kim, was there anything that we've already covered? I don't want to ask a question again. And it sounds like we covered water and MREs and things like
Right?
that.
It's been a little wide ranging, but some comments on water. I mean, that's sort of the essential, like one of the cornerstones. If you don't have anything else, make sure you've got water and or some way to purify water or both. There was some hilarious, some humorous commentary in the chat about also having corkscrews available because not everybody thinks of that. Thank you, Oklahoma James. It's very important. Survival. You have to just evaluate for yourself the definition of survival, what that means to you. Have those resources on hand. But that was pretty much our conversation, Bill.
I see some conversation about Vienna sausages, so we're all remembering our beloved J.B. Elliott. What's the shelf life on Vienna sausages, Ron? Have you checked that lately?
Let's say 5 years, but
okay.
Like I said, if it's not imploded or whatever, you don't smell anything when you open it. Eat it. I mean, they've had.
Only problem, Troy, is your shelf life will be a lot shorter after you eat all those Vienna sausages.
That's the shelf life of what's Troy's kitchen right now, anyway. So it's not 5 or 10 years. So always check the dates.
Yeah, your shortest shelf life is anything that's got acidy food like tomatoes or something like that in it.
So Ron, you went through Hurricane Frederic. Take us back to that experience and how it shaped your view on this process.
Okay, I went down to Hurricane Frederic. I was in at that time Louisville National Guard, 1st 117 Field Artillery, and we went down there like the day after, and then everybody kept coming in from there. It was pretty peaceful. I was guarding ice trucks coming in. The ice truck pull up out in the mall parking lot, and we get somebody out of the crowd, start handing out ice. But when that thing get empty, the crowd get agitated a little bit and want the bags of ice that they were getting for hauling them off, and you had to tell them, no, we'll come back around. People were bootlegging ice, selling it. I was guarding an ice house at 3 o'clock in the morning one time, and then there's people running around out there, but they weren't bothering my ice house, so I don't bother them. Pritchard was up the road. They got mad. They didn't think they're getting their share of the relief, so the chief of police quit. The mayor, everybody quit, and so we had to come rolling in there, make a little bit of order. But people are usually on their best behavior. First week or so of a storm, they're helping the neighbors out. They're clearing the lawns out and things of this nature. When I was there, I was getting good at find out where best to eat at because we didn't bring the field unit, and I'd go down to the local cop shop, and eat with them because the families and everybody were bringing in food. And they had the best side of the Miller Beer Company flew off down there. They had free beer over there, for them gardening it, I guess. So that was a good place for me. And it'd be going over to the Salvation Army to other places, to eat. But generally speaking, it was as for everybody thinks people turn into zombies or something, when a disaster strikes. You're always going to have your 10% element that's looking for an opportunity to do something, steal something, whatever. But there's no massive looting or anything like that going on.
And it's zombies and free beer, says John Gordon. What in the world? So have you covered tornadoes in your writing so far, Ron?
No, I haven't hit anybody with a tornado yet. I do space weather, solar storms, things like that. The Carrington event that happened in 1860, back when all we had technology wise was telegraphs. Some of the operators got shocked. Some of the places that they had in the offices, they caught fire. But if that happened today, all these computers on the cars go out. Yep. And you're going to have people stranded all up and down the highways. The government predicts if we did have a Carrington type event now, that in 1 year, 90% of everybody would die in America.
Hey, James, you're always talking about these character events. This is not good.
I'm digging a hole right now. I'm digging a hole.
Yeah. Are you studying how the government and the utilities and preparedness is going toward being ready for an event like this, Ron?
Actually, they're not.
Great.
They don't talk about it. I'll tell you basically the gist of that. It's gonna be a military event, because like we took all the power out, in Iraq, etc. Army does that, and then we come back and rebuild it. It'd have to be something of that nature. But those type countries are more agricultural, or back to the earth type than we are over here. They have nothing. I mean, nothing would work. Transport won't work unless you got, an nice old truck or something like that, anything pre-1980 or so. The cover of the combined trilogy of mine is The Longest Walk. I got all the cars going down the highway in Atlanta parked all over the place, and people just walking, because that's all you're going to have to do. And then so municipal water's off, the planes will fall out of the sky, so you're going to have fires, uncontrolled, and quite a horrific event. They don't put any information out on what their plan is, so the only thing that's left is the Army. That's the same as, like, there's an arc storm scenario that they use out in California. That's California's other big one. If that occurs, you're gonna have people trying to evacuate out of there. There's no evacuation route for them that's planned. They just basically studied how much would it cost, economically wise. And a lot of people don't realize, like, we get most of our milk and a lot of our vegetables and all that sort of thing, and that could also tilt an economic collapse on the country.
Hey, Ron. Yeah, I've got a question for you. Troy Kimmel here. Having grown up or native Texan and grew up in the South, and you being involved in emergency management or preparedness and so forth, and this is something I've heard Kim talk about on some of her work and research that she's done after tornadoes in Alabama, particularly. Is there anything unique about how people in the southern U.S. perceive severe weather, you think, or inclement weather, and how they react, maybe compared to different parts of the country? I wonder, because they see it so frequently, and we just finished out with 3 days of just constant severe weather. Is there anything different about how you perceive people in the South and how they maybe anticipate this, or what their feelings are about it?
They do anticipate. It's like the hurricanes. You get used to responding, or things coming through, etc. Unfortunately, people don't take into account a mobile home park. They're like, I don't know, telegraph for tornadoes and whatnot, and they don't go somewhere else, to take shelter. They try to ride things out, and then, of course, the big joke is in Alabama, they go find the, only person that, doesn't have any teeth and is talking about, do you see that? It sounded like a freight train. Here it come, and that's who they interview.
Yeah.
But
I know that Kim spent a lot of time in the South and following the tornadoes in Alabama a few years back. And you talked to a lot of people, and it was interesting. Things that I never thought about that Kim has brought up and James Spann has discussed, where we kind of say, get out of that mobile home. Well, it's great until you figure out the breadwinner is taking the vehicle and they're at work earning their money, and the family's at home in a mobile home. What do you do in that kind of situation? I just wonder if just a different, how they perceive this and how they react to it is any different in the South than it would be maybe in central Kansas. Yeah.
Well, Kansas that's very tornado prone. That's, Tornado Alley over there. Yeah. A lot of them have, where the farms have the outside shelters, etc. Knowing to, get in a ditch or things of this nature, you see one coming, knowing, I guess they back and forth on teaching whether or not you should get on the west wall of the of a building or not. It's people have to have a plan. They have to anticipate something like this. Now, if they can go somewhere or they can get a neighbor to take them to the shelter, etc. All the civil defense shelters that we used to have are closed down. I know used to have Normandale here in Montgomery. They had a shelter at the bottom of it. The tornado went off and a whole bunch of cars went up there. Nobody had a key to the thing, and now that's gone.
Yep. In a way, Ron, I've always told people, I said, if your plan just consists of having a 6-pack in the fridge in a tornado watch day and deciding you're going over to see a friend in a foundation home and spend some time over there and carry the 6-pack with you, that's a plan as far as I'm concerned. And
there you go.
And in a way, you kind of got to look at it that way. But I wonder if people in the South, and especially after this last week, I wonder if they just, and Rick, you were in Memphis, this. I just wonder if people get resigned to the fact that this, I cannot even imagine if I was in Summer, Tennessee, or these places in Western Tennessee, Northern Mississippi I saw tornado warnings, and I told people in North Mississippi, I think it's over with. And then a couple of minutes later, one spins up again, and there comes the next warning. And I wonder if they just get resigned to the fact that this is going to happen, Kim. You've been down there.
Did you see the news story about the guys who buried their van in the ground in Arkansas? So when I'd done my work in Alabama and Mississippi, I had come across some folks who made some homegrown shelters, and one of the more sturdy of those was an old school bus that was built, buried, and that one was a non-functioning vehicle. What these folks in Arkansas did, I think, speaks to, it's a sort of indicator of the public sentiment, though imperfect. We can look at it and say, is there concern in society for severe weather? I think so. They took their working van and they had a forklift thing, or a little, it was a
loader.
Like a mini excavator that they'd gotten from Temu, that Chinese website that I didn't think sold a massive equipment, but apparently does. And it, they used it in the hours ahead of the storms to dig a ditch in their property, stick their van in it, and then cover it over with dirt. And they got on the national news for this. They offered to any of their neighbors who want to bury their vehicles that they are happy to do so. And they figured out how to block certain critical systems and things like their air intake and everything from getting dirt in it. They were prepared. So I'm going to put this out there. Troy, to your question, I think the people of the South look at this, take it very seriously, and are by gosh and by golly, they're going to do everything they can not to die that way.
I got an emergency manager's tip for y'all. There is money. You can get I think it's up to $13,000 now for an in-ground grant for tornado shelter. You gotta get it on the list, but they don't have any money for them until after a tornado. The time to go hit them up is right after tornado, and then you might get you a shelter and get the grant money from FEMA.
Right. I sure hope that grant funding persists in the current state of things. But it is a wonderful thing to, at least you can see this. You see the hallmarks of resilience in communities that have had disasters. They rebuild stronger. It is a wonderful thing to have in those in between times. I think, absent something that's like a quote unquote perfect solution, like in being underground in a bunker, there still are things you can do to just reinforce the structure that you're in. Even if you're in a mobile manufactured home, there's some evidence that having proper tie downs that are routinely inspected can at least help you. Most tornadoes are weak, and that's your foe, or straight line winds, even when you're in a mobile home or a manufactured home. So the bar doesn't have to be infinitely high, right? When I saw that story from Arkansas, I thought, these folks probably live in a site-built home or know somebody who does. So what you were talking about, Troy, with taking a 6-pack down to some neighbors, do they know, as a social scientist, what I question is, do they know how survivable tornadoes are in ordinary site-built structures? You don't have to do something so elaborate. The fact that they did, to me, speaks to the like just fear or sense of helplessness. And that, man, we could do a lot of good by helping to overcome that with sort of simple preparedness. Right, Ron? Like the goal of preparedness isn't to try to make it insurmountable, it's to try to make it fairly straightforward.
Oh yeah, well you can get in the hallway, get the mattress off the bed type situation. And I know a lot of people talk about dragging mattresses out, when those things happen. The communities themselves, should, like for a mobile home park, they could have a shelter as part of that mobile home park. Things of that nature. Just people don't plan, and they don't think about what happens when there's no shelter. We have shelters, of last resort for hurricanes, but as for where's the shelter I'm supposed to go to for a tornado, people are clueless.
I just have to say one thing, that if we could charge for James A's puns in the chat, we would be wealthy, because I think it in my head and it's not funny. And he says it in the chat and I crack up every single time, because when Kim commented about the Timu, he said what he responded was infinitely funny to me.
Yeah, but Bill, you're the money guy. I mean, we could monetize that pretty easy, don't you think? Somehow come on, man, you're the money guy. You're the brains here.
All right,
I'll James.
I'll get to work on that. And Jared, no, you don't get a check till we get a check. Sorry.
Sorry.
I will take a check for $0 as long as it's signed by James Spann.
Okay. It's in the mail. 0.00.
That Rick just gave you a check in the chat, so you're good to go.
And you get a new shirt, and you get a brand new shirt.
A tight shirt, 2 sizes too small.
And do I get cargo shorts too?
From the school this morning? That'll be the only challenge that you'll have.
Yeah.
So yeah, Rick just sent you your check, so it's in the chat for you right there, Jared. So that's pretty cool. So what else do I want to ask you? The cell outage thing scared me, Ron, because it made me realize how dependent we are on the internet. And I know you've covered CMEs and things like that in your coverage, but a simple attack on our internet infrastructure really petrifies me, because so much of our civilization is based on that.
Yeah, that's a pretty easy one. The CIA lost all their hacking tools, and they all appeared over there in North Korea. I got a book on that where they could, basically collapse the economy, take America without firing a shot. Yeah, your credit cards don't work, etc., which have some cash around. You got to buy some gas if the pumps are working, depending on what's going on. People that I think the younger generation be more at a loss, if the phones go down, whatever, what do you do with your kids? They're bored. They don't go out and play like we did, You have some, board games, things of that nature around for them. You've been through hurricanes, it's a lot of us sitting around, TV don't work, nothing going on, get deck cards, have those type of things around.
So, Ron, do you think the South has a unique cultural connection to preparedness more than the rest of the country?
I do think so. We have a lot of people that, I don't know, it's weird. In the country, people don't have the gardens like they used to. But I think overall, we're way ahead of, say, the North, because, we know how to fish, we know how to hunt. My favorite 2 survivors, you get 2 young boys or, girl or whatever that they're wandering around a cow pasture with a Daisy 880. They know more about surviving than 90% of the people, they know where all the animals are at, what's going on with it. They start a fire, It's always amazing to me. We go to these prepper meets and they buy these paramecium rods that you strike and whatnot, and they're trying to light a fire with. I said, you got to get the paint off of it first. They don't even think about it. I'm always laughing at them.
I got a question for you, Ron. This is for anyone really, but as someone that recently was part of a disaster here in North Carolina, I have noticed over the past 6 months that a lot more people are prepared, right? Because we had to endure what we endured. There have been forecasts of rain. There have been even wildfires here in Western North Carolina and upstate South Carolina, and people get nervous from that. And as a result, they do go buy extra water and extra, MREs and gas and cash that a lot of people didn't have when the system hit. But I think I've been trying to toy with this because I've got some friends in the National Weather Service, and we were talking about this last week about how, having that experience of an event. And I think I speak for all the meteorologists here tonight on the podcast, that we've all experienced something in our local markets, in our local weather forecast office, our local area. But I wonder, does it take, this might sound pessimistic, but does it take living through a bad event to get you to have that experience and to be better prepared? Like, do we have to go through that? This is something I've been kind of like chewing over the past 6 months, and I'll throw that to you, Ron, or anybody else. I don't know. I've been kind of processing this a lot.
Well, I think for the majority of people, that's when their first realization comes around. They should have got during COVID, with the toilet paper and the cans and all the things that went on during that period of time. But the preparedness community per se, it's estimated over 4 million. That's the people that admit they're preppers. A lot of people don't want to say what they are because they're scared of the neighbor or something of that nature, come to get their food from. But I think the more experience you have living under grid down conditions, you find out real quick what you would like to have for the next event, and you sharpen your skills.
I'll chime in on this with a social science lens to it. I think everything Ron just said was right on. And, when we look at the choice to respond to a potential threat, there's a couple of different things that are our minds that we weigh. One of them is it's a cost. There's an opportunity cost to taking protective action, whether it's just to shelter or if it's to buy goods and store them and maintain all of that, or whatever it is. Societally, we're going through conversations about other kinds of risks too, not just weather. We're looking at combating any number of threats, and questions are rising in many different corners about, well, what really is the level of mitigation that's needed against threat X, Y, or Z? I think something we're seeing, in another domain like public health is questions arising about vaccination. My generation has never had to deal with a real, true, epidemic, the kind of stuff that my parents grew up with. And I can't help but wonder if there's something to that lack of experience that's part of this. When you're psychologically weighing those costs and benefits, there's always a risk perception factor. And things like vaccines, when it was introduced, this idea of this possibly unknown risk of, is this causing unknown side effects, things that are tough to discern. There's psychometric properties to that are hard to deal with by our brains. We fear things that seem deeply unknown. And then it's on, do we trust the people who are telling us about it? That it starts to get into those deeper layers. So I think that there's something very important to many pieces of this. And something that we've taken for granted for a long time in weather is how trusted we are. Even if people haven't experienced a thing, if we tell them it's really important to do something about it, for the most part, especially during warnings, people do something about it. Now they're more inclined to be prepared, like you're talking about, and have advanced resources and have an actual plan. If they've been through it before, they've exercised it essentially in the real world, That's why we do drills in schools. Like having that exercising experience helps you, and you think it through and you go through all of the steps. But even so, when the moment comes, people trust us and they do respond. That's gold. And man, let's make sure we never lose that. And as part of that, that's part of why I think I'm so interested in trying to make sure that when we are messaging, we're trying to do so just like as absolutely transparently as we can about what we know and don't know, and all the things that in society now people are looking for to know that they can trust somebody, because they're not just going to trust you. Like that used to be the way of institutions, and it's not anymore. So Ron, everything you said is right on, and I think there's just a lot that we're wrestling with in society now that's a part of the picture that we've got to be thinking about with preparedness in mind.
Yeah, also religion plays a role in that too. It's always interesting to look at what the different religions expect from their church after a disaster, and what people think whether the church provides or they'll say God provides. You got to point out to them the Bible where it says prepare, things of this nature. Many people just depend on the government, they depend on their church, things of this nature take care of them. They have to learn to take care of themselves first.
And Ron, James always gets to this when he gets to his Carrington event stories. He talks about how important ham radio is going to be. Have you included that in any of your books so far?
I've had some ham radio included in that. The ham operators out there are a big part of the prepper community as well as normal disasters. I'm not a ham operator myself. Of course, all the ham operators right now, they're worried, is their stuff going to fry when the Carrington event? Well, if they're not prepared for it, they don't have the warning. We're supposed to get about 1 hour warning. The satellites turn away from it. The power companies shut down the generators, etc. So ham, I don't think is going to be such a big thing after Carrington event. Yes, there will be some going on. You need, your wideband radio, etc. It's a big iffy question, and it's you get the technology end of the ham operators, how they prepared for theirs.
So James Spann, will your handhelds be damaged in a Carrington event, or is this be like large base stations that are attached to antennas?
Well, and again, I don't think anybody knows until it happens, but you're safe with those analog tube radios. That's what you want to go to, these analog tube 6146B finals, and they will keep on working like a charm if you've got power. And that's the other problem, is having, a generator to power the thing up. But we will save the world, ham radio operators. It will happen one day when your phone becomes a brick. We will be there.
Yeah, that's important.
Yeah, but you got a big antenna up there. It's going to direct everything into you.
Oh, I've got a dipole in the attic. All you need is a dipole. You put an HF dipole up in the attic, antenna tuner, good old Kenwood tube final radio. You're good.
All right.
Yeah, what I tell people on the cars, etc., if we know what's coming, and they're not going to tell you what to do, you have to have knowledge beforehand. Know this. You undo your battery cables on your car, right? Because you don't want any juice run to, but you still got capacitors, etc., in there that can do that. Remember, when they go to the gas station, they're filling up. They always drop a chain next to it, ground out static electricity. Take your jumper cables, hook them to your bumper, throw them out there for you. Get it to stand a better chance. If you can park in a parking deck, my guy got by because he had an old truck, but he had it in Atlanta. He had it parked in the parking deck, and then he didn't get whacked on that particular thing. But if we do get the warning, you unplug everything in the house.
All right, so I get these space weather alerts, and I think Kim has left for a second, but they talk about levels, Troy, certain class flares, and maybe Kim knows the answer to this. Ron's saying we're going to get an hour's warning. So when I get my space weather thing, what's it going to say, Kim, that tells me this Carrington event is coming, so I can run around and do all these things I'm supposed to do?
Well, hey, I'd love to hear Ron talk about that first, and I'll fill in any gaps. But Ron, I'm really pleased to hear, honestly, how much you've done to understand the space weather forecasting system. I think a lot of people can find it confusing and unapproachable. So, tell us your thoughts on that.
Well, I keep up with the daily. You can sign up free to many of these alerts that they come to your phone. They come to your email, and they tell you basically what's going on. All the ham operators keep up with it because they like to kick their signals around, etc. It's like our satellites. So I was saying, they turn away from the storm. They're shielded for the EMF, but they also turn everything away. We're guessing an hour. It depends on what the event is. You can have a 10x go off and less than 15 minutes, zap. But the power companies, everybody else, they'll be shutting everything down as much as they can. We see things go on all the time. I'm watching it, just last few weeks, we've had some interesting things go on. Everybody's talking about pole shift too. Is another fun subject that we do. You should get a warning. All they're going to do basically is tell you, all right, we got incoming, so far, we're going to lose communications, power, etc. And they're going to leave you on your own because that's it.
Right? That's the challenging thing. So, I mean, to my understanding, the best that we've got is a response plan, and it's not necessarily like a warning plan. But if something like this was to happen, so I'll draw a distinction between like solar flares. When you get a flare, that is where you get like the radio interference or bursts of radiation. The lead time for those isn't horribly long, but radiation, maybe we get a little bit more lead time. Just monitoring the sun, its surface, and sort of understanding likely patterns of radiation to come with the solar wind. But coronal mass ejections is where we get the geomagnetic activity. And with that, if it was something of the magnitude of a Carrington event, we wouldn't know for sure that it was actually, like, we could know that it was really, really big, like the mass was big just visually. We could tell that. We could kind of infer that it was earth directed. Now get this. You see what you see when it's the most earth directed, it looks like a halo coming off of the sun. That could either mean it's earth directed or completely away. And right now we've just got points only between us and the sun, nothing on the side. We're going to be getting stuff on the side so we can get that view. It's coming, but we don't have it yet. So we have to wait for that confirmation until it hits satellites that are about 1 million miles from Earth. Gives us 15 minutes of lead time for sure, that we really can say yes for sure this was completely it's coming our way, and to know the direction of the magnetic field, if it's one that aligns with ours or runs counter to ours. And that's important because it will only induce an electric current one way. The other way will be completely a nothing burger, just pass us by, not interact with the ionosphere at all. So what we're looking at, what Ron was talking about, the only response option available to us really is to try to shut down the grid. So I think what I imagine happening, if there is something like a Carrington that happens, is we'd have probably more like a day or so of notice that there'd been a huge eruption on the sun, and we would do our best to try to determine if it's Earth directed before we verify. When it hits closer satellites, I think we'd have some sense probably of yes, given some other antecedent things that could come in the solar wind. And there'd probably be more energetic protons and things like that would happen at the same time. But we would only have until it hits that satellite, that 15 minutes where we would actually see the action taken. So my hope is that there'd be communication about, hey, something really bad possibly has happened. And just so you guys know, the power might go out nationwide, and it's to save the system, because all we can do is try to disconnect everything from itself, all of our subgrids, to try to save them from frying each other and induce like huge currents on each other, especially on the East Coast, which the subsurface is super conductive. They have the worst issues with even weaker storms now. So yeah, it's kind of nutty how it works. And
that's when you start filling up all your pots and pans in the house with water and all that sort of thing.
Yep. Tell you what, if you guys ever hear someone say like this could be a Carrington level solar event, take it very seriously. Get that water. Like this is the big thing, the big time, because we're not sure how everything will actually perform, how the systems will perform. The biggest event we've had in recent history is the Gannon storm back in last May. And there were some, there were currents that were getting generated on our lines. Nothing fried because we took, mitigating actions, or the electric grid operators did, but they were getting like sort of concerning levels building up. And that, what we understand is that is several orders of magnitude lower still than a Carrington event. The G5 and above, there's a lot of terrain in that. We're talking about that from a communication perspective now. Like, can we call out specific grid, different levels here? Because Carrington is just like even so much more powerful than what we saw. And that strained our systems. So if you do hear about it, like follow all the advice you've heard and be preparing, even if there's all that uncertainty.
Yeah, we just dodged the bullet in 2012. It took them 3 years to tell us, we only missed about 24 hours, but the prepper community knew from my books, etc., that, hey, it started getting ready for this thing. And I remember that Christmas Eve, I was putting a wood stove in the house, and I said, no, I'm not taking the day off. I have this thing done because, the first was going to roll around. That's when it was supposed to hit, But they confirmed that. So that was an almost.
Yeah, apparently, just what I've seen here on these NOAA space weather scales, Kim, they sort of follow our tornado scales to a certain degree. G1 is minor to G5 extreme. So when I have a little perspective here when I get my space weather alerts. So I'm going to be looking for those G4 and G5 events for sure when those things come. Well, I kind of, if I've developed a new set of anxieties tonight. Ron, any real folks ever been some of your characters? Any folks ever been an inspiration for any of your characters?
Oh yeah, I have friends. I call prepper meets every once in a while. That's just basically a lot of people that like my books. I'll have 100 or so show up. We sit around the campfire, have some adult beverages, swap prepper tricks, etc. And then I'll choose somebody, put them in the situation, or I go up to my local barbecue joint because I'm looking for a weird old Southern name nobody uses anymore to put on somebody. A lot of the big prepper channels used to, I'd write them in there because networking, helps sell the books, but they also give advice, or I have them come up with things that individuals that always have a special trick nobody thought of. So I had one, my girlfriend, I put her in there. The grid was down, and we wanted to try to get the community together a little bit, but everybody's the gun happy out there. You don't go knocking on doors during that sort of thing. So we went around putting a roll of toilet paper in the mailboxes and told everybody to meet at the church the following week, start the barter and the trade and all that sort of thing, and see if we couldn't get the community back together.
So if you show up with a character modeled after Dr. Kim Cloko McLean, a really brilliant earth scientist, we will know where you got it, and we will tell you we understand why you chose her. Any other panelists have any questions or anything you wanna ask Ron before we let him get out of here? This has been a really fun, fascinating, and now fear-inducing show.
Well, I think for so many people listening, they've heard so many different scenarios, and for the average person listening to the show right now, let's say they're in Omaha and they're listening. What do you advise people have in their homes, for just for Joe Q Public right now, for whatever might happen? What's your basic advice?
Well, you need a go bag because you never tell when you're going to have to leave your home. You can have a wildfire, you can have a tornado, etc. And that's your clothes, things of this nature, all your copies of your important papers and your ID, things of this nature. The government's got I'm trying to remember it off the top of my head, preparedness. They have guidelines, just like what you should have around, which covers like cleaning supplies, things of this nature. Clean up after a storm is always a mess too. Don't wait to the last minute to be buying food. Keep a pantry, and have your basics. Think about what your family normally eats. Like I said, a lot of those emergency foods and whatnot, they're all vegetarian. They might taste a little weird. You want comfort food, things that you're used to, and you know how to cook. Know how to cook without power. I mean, if you don't have electricity, got an electric stove, you got to have a backup to that. Understand what works. Sterno is not going to fry a pork chop type thing. You have to do a little research on your own and get out there and find out what it is. These solar generators that everybody's pushing out here, they're not going to run your air conditioner. A lot of them won't even run your refrigerator.
Okay, and again, those are good practical points I think everybody can use. And Bill Murray, I got to chase one rabbit real quick here before we take a break. Ron, did you say you live in Troy, Alabama?
Yes.
You ever heard of Greenville, Alabama?
I know Greenville. I used to be in Louisville Guard over there. They're part of.
All right. Well, I'm from Greenville. The train that I played on as a little boy in Chapman, Alabama, W.T. Smith Lumber Company, now sits in Troy on US 231 at the Pioneer Museum. So if you ever see that little train, that little black train coming into Troy from the north, as a little boy, I used to play on that thing. It warms my heart every time I go through Troy and see that. In fact, I will admit I've stopped and I've jumped on it one more time to relive my childhood. So I love Troy, Alabama, Ron, but thanks for coming on the show. Bill, anything else we need to do before we take a break here?
No, I always thought you had a little Sheldon Cooper in you there, loving trains, James. I just didn't know that about you. I learned something after all these shows. Every week I learned something about you.
And I might point out, too, what a fine name Troy, Alabama has.
That is a good name.
Yeah. Let's go to Troy from Troy.
Yeah, there we go.
So Ron, before I let you go, tell us how people can buy the book. Plug away, go.
All right. My website is prepper-fiction-survival.com. I got that one. I got prepper-fiction.com. That's my other one. All my books are on Amazon. I'm on Barnes & Nobles. Anywhere books are sold, I'm on one of those platforms.
I have really enjoyed reading your book that you sent me, Ron. Thank you for that.
More than welcome.
And Ron, thanks for your time. I know you're busy, but we certainly appreciate it. I hope to talk to you again soon. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
All the best. Thank you for having me.
All right, so let's take a break. We're going to hear from Tony Rice and the Astronomy Report. We're going to hear from Jen, who is back. Jen, I had that audio issue at the top. I didn't get a chance to introduce you properly. I'm so sorry. I was fighting some weird audio hijack issue. How was your trip?
It was just fantastic. I figured you were ignoring me because I was back in the Arctic Circle, bringing back the cold air. But
yes, it's all your fault.
It's all my
your
fault.
You left the back door open. Yeah,
I did. No, it was fabulous. Enjoyed it. Had a great time with my aunt, and I think she really enjoyed learning about the history. And we got back. We left Poplar Bluff on Tuesday, and I got back home on Wednesday before everything fell apart. So just got home and got her safe too, back to Indianapolis. So.
Wow. Well, welcome back.
Thank you.
And listen, I like the cold. I got no problem with it. I mean, it's like, but it's been a big change. So we were in the mid to upper 80s on Saturday, Today, we were in the mid to upper 40s. That's a 40-degree drop, Jen. Thanks to you, so thank you. Before you know it, it's going to be August, and we would do anything for an air mass like this. So I just went outside and breathed some of it. It feels great. But having said that, we got to take a break here from Tony. We'll hear from Jen. We'll hear from Bruce Jones here shortly. Picks of the week, a whole lot more coming up as WeatherBrains rolls along.
Looking beyond the atmosphere, here's Tony Rice with your astronomy outlook.
A year ago this week, a total solar eclipse was passing through Mexico into Texas, through the southeastern corner of Oklahoma, across Arkansas, through portions of Missouri and Illinois, across Indiana, Ohio, along the Great Lakes, and finally out through Maine and the Canadian Maritimes. Personally, I watched it from the top of a parking deck in Arlington, Texas, right between Dallas Cowboys Stadium and the Texas Rangers ballpark. This elevated position made it possible to see the edge of the shadow moving our way from the south, and was joined by the housekeeping staff at the hotel we were staying at. I made sure had eclipse glasses. I'd actually given out stacks of those glasses at every Buc-ee's and In-N-Out Burger between Raleigh and Dallas. My son and I topped that day off with a Rangers game against the Astros. It was Mariachi Monday, and we also got to see a young Astros pitcher make his major league debut. It was a pretty good day. Unfortunately, though, unless you're up to traveling overseas, last year's total eclipse and the annular eclipse that passed from Oregon through the American Southwest a few months before that, those are going to be the last ones for a while. The next eclipse path hitting North America will be in January of 2038 across the Caribbean islands. Next will be an annular one that moves up the Aleutian Island chain, tracing a wide path across Alaska and through extreme northern Canada in 2039. Then there's a drought until 2044, when a total eclipse path will cover nearly all of Montana, followed by another total moving from Northern California across the Rockies into the deep south before moving down the Florida Peninsula, including Disney World. So make your reservations now. Between now and then, though, we'll see some partial eclipses in 2025 and 26, as well as 2028 and 2029, depending on where you live. Notice the pattern here? Eclipses are grouped together. But I'll save that for a future WeatherBrains. That's your astronomy outlook. Follow me at RTP Hokie for more spacey stuff like this.
This week in tornado history, 47 tornadoes were confirmed on April the 7th, 2006. The deadliest crossed through parts of Davidson and Sumner counties in the state of Tennessee. It was given a rating of F3. Several homes were destroyed in Goodlettsville, and that's in Davidson County. The Metro Baptist Church lost its roof, and the front of the church was blown away. 35 preschoolers huddled in the back of the church under their chairs before the tornado hit, and none of the children were injured. Officially in Davidson County, 25 homes were destroyed, 13 homes or businesses had major damage, and 31 with moderate damage. Even more destruction occurred in Sumner County, where 700 homes and businesses were damaged or destroyed. 80 homes were destroyed in the city of Hendersonville. Volunteer State Community College in Southwest Gallatin was heavily damaged, along with several car dealerships across the road from the school. Per storm data, quote, several people died inside their homes. A National Weather Service storm survey team discovered that $500,000 brick homes were not built as well as one might have expected. Cinder blocks were filled with concrete, and boards were nailed to the cinder block as the base for the foundation. The strong winds caused some brick homes to move off the cinder blocks and collapse. This was observed in the Woodhaven subdivision in Gallatin. There were 7 fatalities that occurred all in Gallatin. An 83-year-old woman died of a heart attack the day of the tornado, and that is considered an indirect death. 128 people were injured.
All right, time to dig into the email inbox, and just maybe we got something for you this week.
We had so many email. I'm so sorry, everybody, that it took me a little while to get back through it, but I saved every email that's come in since mid-March, and I was going through. I do want to say at the start here, if you sent an email to us, and you did not put your email at the bottom of it, then I don't know how to respond to you. So please, Brittany.
How does this happen? We got to fix this problem.
I am going to mention
This is not that hard.
I know.
We've got to fix this.
We got to fix the email.
We've got such a big IQ array of people on the show here. We're going to get this email problem fixed.
Yeah, it's weird because I think it's trying to help us with the spam issue. Yeah. And so what's happening is people write, and then it comes to email@weatherbrains.com. And then when we go to reply, we're replying to email@weatherbrains.com. It's not coming from the actual person's email. And so I mentioned Brittany because you wrote an amazing email, but I can't write back to you. So if you could just write me an email and put your email in there, that would be awesome. But there's a lot of email in here. I'm just going to go through a few. Bill cut and run. So I had one for him, and so now I can't ask that. But I do want to bring in John Gordon because somebody wrote an email today. Laura Cook, thank you for writing this email. And it talks about, she lives in Louisville. And she's talking about some of the flooding, and she saw that today a Candlewood Suites had to be evacuated because they were trapped by the floodwaters. She goes, I thought this would interest you all, especially Bill Murray, who I'm sure has lots of thoughts on that situation. But we're not going to ask Bill Murray. We're going to ask John Gordon because he lives there. So what was the flooding like for you? And did you have flooding?
Yeah. Okay. That's why I've been going on and off camera tonight, because I have about 1.5 inches of water in my basement, but nothing like the people down by the river. Right now it's about 36 feet, 35.5 feet. It's going to crest or almost 37 here. Cincinnati crested right about now, so we won't crest till Wednesday morning. That hotel was, for the folks who come through Louisville, that's on Interstate 71 near Zorn Avenue. That's the exit before you get to downtown. And it's a mess downtown. I mean, it's a mess. The biggest fireworks show, now I'm just repeating this, don't get mad, but allegedly the biggest fireworks show in America is Thunder over Louisville. It's 2 weeks before the Derby, and it's been canceled.
Wow.
How bad the flooding is. And people are like, well, it's sunny. It's nice. Well, you've got barges that can't get here because Cairo in the western part of the Ohio River on the Mississippi side, they can't, that's blocked off because of all the rain from St. Louis. All that water up by Cincinnati's coming this way. And the Ohio, even though it crests, and I appreciate the question, when it crests, it's going to stay about 35, 36 for about 1.5 days, 2 days, and then just slowly come down. So they cancel the show. That's how bad it is. Great. I'm glad to get that question.
Yeah, it's just we forget, we really don't have a comprehension of how widespread everything is and how everything's connected, and it's just crazy. Another question that came in from, I'm not going to say your last name because I will mess it up, but Jason from Murfreesboro, thank you for writing this. He said that you are a high school senior, and for a recent capstone research project, you looked into the perception people may have that could inhibit safe sheltering actions regarding severe weather. In this admittedly limited research, I found that an implementation of severe weather education into the formal classroom could be the key to combating those perceptions that I found inhibit safe sheltering action. And so I really thought this was good for James Spann because, James, you go into the classroom and you talk severe weather. And I did it about a month or so ago to a homeschool group. And we talked about, tornado safety and what to do and what have you. So I think that what he's come up with is a great idea. We should probably try to implement that more. What do you say?
Yeah, listen, again, what I do in the schools, I think it's the most important part of the whole day. My first school opening is now in 2027, but the thing is, I have to get better. I don't want to do a stagnant program. I want to improve and be more interactive and make it relevant to the specific ages that I'm speaking to. So yeah, it's I think it's great.
Yeah, I do too. Last thing I want to explore here is, and I want to bring James A. in on this, is we had a couple of folks write about the Amish and the Northern Indiana survey. So James A., can you talk about that a little bit? Because I think it's so cool.
Yeah, the Weather Service office in Northern Indiana, and I can't remember what community they're in, but they one of their CWA is an Amish community that was hit by a tornado, and apparently they were out either late the next day or the second day, to my understanding, and could not get specific damage indicators on homes because the Amish community had already repaired all the tornado damage, which is the most heartwarming, awesome thing ever.
Yeah.
And if they could get a job with the Oklahoma Department of Transportation, that would be awesome too.
Yes. It's just so awesome. It's gone viral. I mean, it's amazing to see. And I just thought that was just awesome. So thanks everybody for writing. Thank you so much and we've got more email. We'll go through more next week and I'll try to write you back if you put your email in the email. Email at weatherbrains.com. Yes, dear.
I've got one for you. I'm gonna follow up with your request on the email. Do us a favor and put your name in there too, just in case you have a little bit of a weird email address. But if you could include your name, and your email address in the body of the email, you have to manually write it in. We would appreciate it.
Yeah,
Thank you, Jen, for mentioning that.
You bet. And guys, we have to do it. We have to do it for ourselves. Because we can't, like, if I send an email, nobody knows it's from me unless I say love Jen at the bottom of it. So yeah, we all have to do it. And until we can find someone, who can help us out here, this is where we're at with this at the moment. But yeah, and thank you to everyone for all of the congratulations on the 1000th show. And, all of it, it's heartwarming. We have such wonderful listeners and we appreciate it so much. But yeah, shoot us an email at weatherbrains.com.
And we might also thank all the people for the cash that's been coming in constantly because we brought John Gordon in. And, it's just been amazing.
Yeah.
So, we appreciate that.
No, the audience is quadrupled. We have donations rolling in. It's been right. Since John has joined this show, everything has changed. Everything. So,
it's gone higher and higher.
Oh, no, we lost
him.
No.
Oh, no.
John, you're dropping out, buddy.
Oh, boy. Now we've lost John.
Damn it. I'll be right back.
There's your show title. There's
show title right there. Wow. It's outstanding. That's outstanding.
We couldn't even get Cameron Nixon to do that.
No.
Man.
So let's carry on here. Let's talk with Jared for just a minute. Jared, what's going on at your place up there? Tell us what's the good word. Do y'all have enough people?
Yeah, so it's been a fun few months. As we talked about earlier, we were dealing with the aftermath of Helene. When I was on in October, we had talked about how we had, data loss for about 3 weeks. We were down for about 3 weeks, and everything's back up. Everything's running. Everything, whatever data we thought we lost has pretty much been backfilled. So the data is there. We're still humming along, but just like, for those that don't know, we're under NOAA, but we're under a different line office in the Weather Service. So everybody pretty much knows the Weather Service. By the way, you talked about episode 1000 a few minutes ago. I appreciated the one after, where you had Dr. Uccellini and Tom Skilling on talking about all the wonderful things Weather Service and NOAA does. I do work for NOAA. I do appreciate that. I really do. I take that to heart. Even last week, I was thinking with my friends that worked in a lot of these Weather Service offices that had to deal with all the flooding and tornadoes in the area. We are being affected by it. We're under the NESDIS line office. For those that don't know, NESDIS is a lot of the satellite data. So for example, today was a big day. GOES 19 is now completely operational, which is now, I believe it's going to become GOES East. That's under NESDIS's house. So we operate that. We make all the pretty graphics that come out of that. We do the polar orbiters as well. That, they're not in geostationary orbit. They're a little bit closer to the Earth. And all that data gets archived at NCI. You may have heard us before as NCDC, but we are NCI now. We have all that data, not just weather and climate, but we also have geophysical data. We talk about solar flares. We have that data as well. They never tell me the actual number, but we got to be over 75 petabytes of data. And we're bringing data in daily on the terabyte level. So just laptops and laptops worth of data are coming in every day. But we are, just like Weather Service, we are being affected by all the stuff that's going on, which is I'm just putting my hands in the air. And if I start going a little out of tone, Rick, you might want to just tell me, to stop it. But I'll try and keep my mouth shut. But for those that know me, I don't.
No, keep going. Keep going.
Yeah. So, without going into too much specifics. So, as you've all probably heard, they started with the fork. So the designated resignation. So people had taken that. And then once that went through, they tried to get rid of folks that were considered probationary, meaning that you were within service a year or less. That's kind of up in the air right now with courts and such. Most of those people have come back. Then within all of NOAA, which includes Weather Service and where I work, they're offering what these things called VERA and VSIP. We love our acronyms. Basically, it's opportunities to retire early or to leave workforce earlier. So that period's happening now. It's lasting for a few more weeks. And then we don't know. We really don't know. It's kind of out of our hands. We're just kind of sitting here waiting to see what happens. We've already seen it affect the Weather Service, as we've all talked about, with the RAOB sites being closed or going to one a day. With the story last week of a lot of AWIPs at the very last minute needed some funding, that needed some approvals, and that went through at the last minute. And then on Friday, a lot of websites through OAR, which is another line office, the Office of Atmospheric Research. So a lot of websites that they own, like the Weather Program Office, MRMS, which is a multi-radar, multi-sensor data set that I use frequently. I use that. If you go to my social media, I have a lot of flooding reports. I use MRMS. If that thing went down, I would have had some problems. So we're already seeing these effects, and nothing is really safe. So right now, there's just a lot of uncertainty. And, there have been people that have volunteered to leave federal workforce. I don't fault a single person for making those choices, because everybody has different situations. Everybody has families. Everybody has all the different things to deal with. So I respect everybody's decision. For those that are still around and are going to be still, at least we think we're going to still be around, for those that sort of survive, it's going to be, we don't know. I mean, data sets will probably break. And as Troy knows, it can be very difficult to get data from our website. I'm the first person. I worked for NCI, and I will tell people, don't go to nci.noaa.gov. It's so frustrating how to get data, how to get to our data. And there's multiple different ways of doing it. And my bosses, if they're listening, they would be so mad at me tomorrow. And I might get riffed at this point. It's frustrating to get data from our website, I'll be honest. And there's ways around it. And there are initiatives happening right now to make it better. But they are funded by supplementals that might be going away. So again, there's a lot of uncertainty. We don't know what's going to fall through. There are things that are going to break. And I think we need just a little bit of, maybe a little breather for folks that are trying to get to our data, and there might be some problems down the road. There are people still here. There are people still willing to help. And I'm going to shut up now before I get in any more trouble.
No, we want you to keep going. This is good stuff. I mean, this is outstanding. I mean, and by the way, to redo that NCEI website, I know a guy that's a great web developer. His name is John Gordon, and you can call him at 1-800-JohnGordon.com.
So
and
we'll call it Troy and John's NCDC.com. We'll call it that.
And I hear that John actually has federal government experience. So I mean,
allegedly,
a little bit,
allegedly.
No, then again, we could carry on here, but I have to stop for just a minute very quickly and bring in Bruce Jones. Bruce, thank you for being patient. We've had kind of a busy show tonight, but goodness gracious, Bruce, how many NOAA weather radios sounded the alarm over the past 5-6 days? Goodness gracious.
Yeah, thousands and thousands. In fact, we were informed by Amazon that they sold out. All the Amazon warehouses sold out of radios. So those Amazon orders were being fulfilled from our warehouse in Kansas City. It's really, I don't know. It's amazing. It's sad. It's heartbreaking to see the sales of weather radios go up during these severe weather outbreaks, but it's just phenomenal to see what happens. So I guess it's good, James, that people are getting a weather radio. I would hope that they would get one before the severe weather strikes, but I understand human nature is what it is. So
we had tornadoes in our state up in the Tennessee Valley late Saturday night, pre-dawn Sunday. Classic middle of the night, rain wrapped tornadoes. We have them so often. And the warnings were timely. And I heard so many people the next morning, well, I never heard the siren. Well, guess what? You're not going to hear the siren. So you're sound asleep during a raging storm, and you think you're going to hear some siren 5 miles away when you're sound asleep. It just doesn't work that way. But weather radio is critical for every home and business, and we need to encourage people, Bruce, the inventory is low. I'll say that. You can't find them down here. But don't give up, right? Don't give up. You can get a weather radio.
Yeah, we sent out phone calls to to Walmart and let's see who else, Lowe's and Academy Sports and let's see what's the Home Depot, and just encourage them to make sure that they stocked up on these radios because a lot of years when you don't have much severe weather, they might sit there on the shelf. But again, you have a bout of severe weather like we've had the last 10 days or so. And my goodness, people can't deny any longer that they need to have one of these gizmos. And I'll tell you something, James, when you and I were kids, only rich people had central air conditioning. And so during tornado season, we had our windows open. And so maybe back in the late 50s, early 60s, yes, you could hear that siren when you were inside your house. But now every home has central air conditioning. Every home has triple pane glass on the windows. You just cannot hear those. And I'm as frustrated as you are, James, to constantly hear people talking about, I expected to hear that outdoor siren inside my home.
Yeah, it's again, it's a problem, but we're obviously getting a lot of traction toward weather radio. I think this year, with it being so active, we've had so much attention. And like we say all the time, it's like having a smoke alarm in your home for a tornado. Who would not want that? Goodness gracious, it's absolutely critical. And we've got a special offer right now, Bruce.
We do. It's at midlandusa.com. So the website you go to is midlandusa.com. And when you get on that website, if you want to purchase a weather radio, you can get 25% off on the purchase when you use this promo code. And the promo code is SPANN25. That's SPANN25. SPANN25. And you use that promo code at midlandusa.com. And when you use the SPAN25 promo code, you get 25% off all the weather radio products and accessories. We do have to limit these to 5 per person or 5 per credit card, please. But it's a great offer. And with Mother's Day coming up, Father's Day coming up, Easter's this coming weekend, give these as gifts. Give them to your family. And most importantly, encourage everyone you talk to have a NOAA weather radio at home, at school, and at businesses. There's no faster way or more reliable way to get your weather warnings than direct from your local National Weather Service office via NOAA Weather Radio. MidlandUSA.com is the website. The promo code is SPAN25.
And again, this is going directly through Midland, not Amazon.
Yep.
So we don't have the inventory problem. So again, it's a marvelous opportunity. And again, it's a guy that's been doing this for a long, long time. I just hope that you will help us spread the word for those of you that do have a weather radio. And for most people that listen to this and watch this, they do. But you can help us help your friends and your loved ones and your neighbors to be better prepared. And we've all seen what's happened over the past 5 or 6 days with flooding, severe storms, tornadoes. It's been really, really rough. And the Weather Service, despite the short-staffed nature of most of these offices and despite the challenges, they've done a remarkable job. And that's the best way of getting that warning directly in your home. It's a weather radio. So jump on that today. All right, so we've got to go around the horn and do picks of the week here because we're getting close to the top of the hour. Let's start with James Adelot since he's about to do the 9 o'clock news. James, give us an amazing pick.
Yep, it's what Jen brought up a little earlier. It's a screen cap of that local storm report mentioning how quick and efficient the Amish are at repairing all the tornado damage, but it is a little tough when you're trying to do storm surveys, I guess.
Indeed. And again, we're going to put the links up on weatherbrains.com. Rick Smith, give us a good pick of. By the way, Rick, how did Jared do? Give him a grade on his.
Oh my gosh.
Discussion.
We need to do an after show and have him really open up about what he thinks. So
He's a little restrained.
yeah, he held back a little bit, but no, great job. I couldn't have said it better. And I'm glad you did it instead of me. So just in case. What are we doing? Oh, pick of the week. Yeah, my pick of the week, Alan Gerard, who a lot of you knew was the Sioux and then the MIC at the WFO Jackson, Mississippi, and then he worked at the Severe Storms Lab. He took the fork or the veer. He retired recently, and since he's retired, he started a Substack, which is a thing evidently. And so my pick of the week is where you can go and subscribe to his blog post, his weather updates, and he's really level-headed, really good. He talks about stuff all over the country. Just another source of really level-headed weather information. So that's my pick.
Cool. Again, this will be up on weatherbrains.com. I've actually got a Substack. I need to write more. The problem is just finding time, because when I typically push something out, it's a tweet. It's a short burst of information. But on Substack, you have a chance to go a little longer, and I like that. And I've done a few essays, but I love reading a good Substack. So we'll link that up to weatherbrains.com. John Gordon, I know you, sir, have an amazing pick for us.
I sure do. Oh, first, a big shout out to the person from Estonia that wrote WeatherBrains. In fact, if you write WeatherBrains and you're out of the country, I will personally respond to you. I want to do the international crowd. Okay. So if you're from Bermuda or Canada or England, send us your notes to WeatherBrains. See that man, Mr. Span. So my pick, I love weather history, and the USGS is doing a good timeline every day on the Mount St. Helens 45 years ago. It started in March of 1980, and then it continued to May 18th. So every day we're now great information. And everyone, including Bruce Jones, Midland Weather Radio, is going to go off on volcanic ash warnings or whatever that is. So everyone on this panel is going to be dealing if we have a major eruption somewhere. Great weather history, because it's science and all parts of earth science in our business. And Kim, this is right up your alley too.
Excellent. Again, this will be up on weatherbrains.com. Jen, welcome back. Give us a pick.
Thank you. So when I plan these trips, I have to plan way ahead of time because I'm writing folks and trying to figure out where do I need to stop for history. So I wanted to go to Poplar Bluff, Missouri. First of all, I'm on the radio there. And so I wanted to visit where, I'm doing the forecast. And then I reached out to the museum. And so my pick of the week is the Poplar Bluff Museum. And I met Katie Wiley Ray, who wrote the book on the Poplar Bluff tornado from May 9th, 1927. I'm going to try to see if I can get her on the show. She works at the museum. She is not a meteorologist, but she's a historian. And she started talking, and then I started talking. I'm like, oh my gosh, your tornado talk. I loved her. And we got along so great because she found all the information she could. And she's like, these are my people. And she found all the names of the fatalities. And there were 86 people that died in this path, in this tornado. And then a couple of years ago, they put a memorial up. And I love this memorial. It looks it could be a teardrop or a raindrop. It's a really gorgeous memorial. And I told her, I said, if you guys do something in 1927, I will come back and honor the 100th. But what she does a walking tour and takes you at the beginning of the path and right in downtown. And she tells you this is where the tornado started, takes you down a walking tour. And I don't want to give it all away. I'm just saying it was impactful to see this is where this hotel was and now what it looks like today. And these are the people. And she shows you their photos. She wanted to find all of their photos. And she's done some amazing work with making sure that people in the cemeteries had like headstones and were honored. And she's now going to help me with, as we're creating this virtual tornado memorial, she's going to help me find other people that have died in Butler County and just do it because she wants to. And this is what I'm hoping is going to happen with this memorial, that we'll find people that will crowdsource. She was amazing, and I'm hoping to have her on. Maybe we can try to get her on for the anniversary of this tornado, and she can take us through what happened and how Poplar Bluff, even to this day, is still struggling, even almost 100 years later. So it's a really wonderful town. I'm so honored to be doing forecasts for them. And so Poplar Bluff Museum, please check that out.
Excellent. And we will do that. Great pick. Troy Kimmel, what's your pick of the week?
I'm going to crawl back where we started at the beginning of the show and talk for a second about the good job the National Weather Service has done. They're sort of my pick of the week for this. And we normally don't do this, but I'm going to take advantage of it and do it anyway and let you know. Jason Whitley and Jason Wheeler are friends of mine. They're reporters. I don't know, James, this would have been before you were in the market, but they're at WFAA TV, Dallas Fort Worth, WFAA ABC. And they have a Sunday podcast they release, a video and audio podcast called Y'all-letics. Texas sort of thing. It's a political a podcast. And they invited me to tape today at noon in Dallas. So we go to a pub to do this. I mean, that shows you how good this is. We went to a pub today and did that. And we talked about the Weather Service, and I'll tell you, they'll drop this show, I think, on Sunday of this next week. But we've got to keep these people in the Weather Service in mind. They've been through a rough period now. We have a little of a quiet period coming up, but I'm going to tell you what, here in Texas, March, April, May, quiet doesn't last very long. Alabama either, Western Kentucky either, or Oklahoma either. So I think it'll be a good one. Not everybody's going to agree with what I had to say. I was pretty outspoken. This is an hour-long podcast on WFAA. I want to talk to Jared, but I'm not probably going to let him comment that much because I don't want him to get in trouble. One thing that was brought up to me today, and I've never really thought about it, guys, and I'm going to take it off track for a second. And they asked me, they said, why has the word climate become so politicized? And it hit a button with me at noon today, as you'll see on the podcast next week. And it's true because you know what, Jared, I'm going to mention a name. I'm not free to do it, but I'm going to do it anyway. But we lost one of our best climate focal points in the National Weather Service, Dan Huckabee, in the fork in the road there out of Fort Worth. And the people in Fort Worth are going to continue to do a good job. He was a climate focal point. Climate is the collective state of the Earth's atmosphere over a long period of time. It's not necessarily always changing climate in the future. It's a concern. Climate Prediction Center goes into the 8 to 14 day, but I'm going to tell you, just as important is what Jared and his colleagues protect in Asheville, and that is the climate record. So I'm getting kind of tired, and you'll see it on this podcast, of us vilifying this word when we have so many people trying to protect the past records that are there as well, that Jared does that in a building in Asheville. And I want everybody to watch the show. If you don't like everything I say, that's fine, because no one always does. And we're going to have to agree to disagree sometimes. But and I don't believe this is really a political issue. I think we've got to sit here and look at this from a what do I say? From a critical thought perspective. What can we do if we have to do this? What can we do to maybe help to right the ship, maybe a little bit? And so with that, I turn it over back to you, James.
All right, Jared, go. Jared, I can see the wheels turning. Go.
The only thing I'll say right now is I did a talk at AMS at the annual meeting a couple of years ago and talked about exactly that, Troy.
Okay.
Like, why is the word climate a dirty word? You say that word and then you basically create a divide, one side versus the other. And
well, Jared, they're going to sit there. You use that word and they canceled. You were canceled just for using that word when I could be referring to the high temperature at DFW Airport on the 2nd of August of 1985. Oh, you want to know about climate? You're canceled. I'm canceling you.
Yeah, and people pick a side, and this is something that I have really thought about, and with the discourse and the misinformation and disinformation everywhere, social media is great, but is also a hell site. forgive my language.
Yeah.
Forgive my fork in language. But yeah. And so if you have an AMS membership, it was AMS, I want to say it was the 2024 annual meeting in Baltimore. I think AMS does a really good job archiving those videos. I gave a 15-minute talk about why is the word climate a dirty word and what if it wasn't. And it led to a really good discussion. I have a lot to say, but I think some of you have to do TV in a little bit, so I'll pause.
All right.
Thank you.
On that note, Kim, we'll get back on track. What's your pick of the week?
Oh yeah, back on track, straight to my pick, which is those gentlemen who were so resilient, and it was actually in Kentucky, not Arkansas, where they buried their minivan. And so the article has apparently some tips on how to do such a thing if you would like to, but just thought that it was worth highlighting the resilience of our people in the face of these things. And, I think I'll have a second pick of the week too, if I'm allowed. And
go.
In the spirit of Jared poking the bear, I'll continue poking the bear as well. There, here in Oklahoma last week, I'd picked a Facebook post by the state forester who was fired after we had fires here, and we're facing the same, like within our state, the same conversation about what government services are we going to keep and what are we going to throw away. And in the wake of this, I think it's interesting for our listeners to know that our legislature rose up in opposition to this firing and to subsequent claims the governor made about dissolving the state forest service over all of this. And it's sort of a microcosm of what's going on at the national level, but really questions are emerging about what do we need government for? And maybe it's a healthy conversation on some level that's going on where we're looking, like really taking a look at what is it that people value. But I think it's been heartening for me to see that in this case, the people of Oklahoma, bipartisan, like very bipartisan, are rising up to say, we value this. We value protection against the elements. And here in the plains, that includes fire. So just an update to the story from last week.
Excellent. Bruce Jones, your pick of the week, sir.
Hey, yesterday I'm at the Georgia Emergency Management Conference, and I'm giving a speech tomorrow about NOAA weather radio in Georgia. And so I'm kind of looking back on some historic tornadoes. And yesterday I was doing a graphic about the Gainesville tornado of 1936. And then Jen Naramore puts out something on Twitter about the Cooper Pants Factory. Now, this is kind of an interesting story, historic, unfortunately. The Cooper Pants Factory in Gainesville, Georgia, was hit by this tornado on April 6 of 1936. So the anniversary was yesterday. It is the largest death toll in a single building for any U.S. tornado. It still stands. 70 were killed. I guess the good news is there were 550 people in the building, so the death rate was only 13%. It could have been worse. But 550 people working in the pants factory building, 70 of them killed. A tornado that struck at 8:27 in the morning. Imagine that, 8:27 in the morning, F4 tornado. So I'll just throw it to Jen Naramore because I bet she's got something on tornado talk about it.
We do.
That'll be
have a
my
narrative.
That's my pick of the week then.
Thank
and
you.
That Jen is that's the day after the Tupelo tornado.
That's right.
That killed so many people and went through Tupelo, Mississippi the day before.
Yeah.
Yeah, the 30s were so violent. Goodness gracious. And those people had no clue this was going to happen. I mean, what time was this, Bruce, in the morning? You say 8 o'clock in the morning?
8:27.
Oh, goodness. You're just showing up at work in this hat. You have no clue this is going to happen. It's just incredible. All right, Jared Rennie, we've stalled long enough. The floor belongs to you for a pick of the week.
You stalled for too long because I have two picks for y'all.
Good. The more, the better.
So my first one is it kind of looping back to my rant earlier about NCEI, and this will be a little bit more calmed rant. I did a little meditation a minute ago. So my if you've used my socials before, you know that one of my goals is to get people access to our data. I rant about NCI and the website a lot, but there really is good data there. And I do appreciate your comments, Troy, about it. I really do. But yes, getting our data is hard. And once you have it, it's a question of, what do you do with it? It could be, a file format you've never heard of before. So over the past 10, 15 years, my goal is to make visualizations that people can understand and see the data in a different way. What I've been trying to do more recently is to get people not to become computer programmers, but to utilize those types of tools to make visualizations that pertain to you. So there's something called Jupyter Notebooks where you can put Python code in there, and it's a plug and play. And on my GitHub page, so my first pick is my GitHub page. It's github.com/JJRennie, which is right here. You can go there. There's a few repos in there, and they're all about visualizing data, that some that we have and some that we don't. I actually just tested it earlier, the GOES-19 data. I have a true color notebook in there that you can get, true color from GOES-19 that was operational today. I tested it, it works. You can also get, talk about the river gauges this weekend in Kentucky. You can get all that information. I updated that today, looking at certain gauges that exceeded, a historic crest, and there were certainly a few in Kentucky and Tennessee. But then, I can also have fun with it. I use the HRRR to determine when the dew point in the US is above 55 degrees Fahrenheit or not, in an index that I like to call the Jared is Miserable Index. So there's a repository for that if anybody wants to go see where and when Jared is miserable. All free, mostly plug and play. And you can, edit some stuff. There's some station data in there too. So if you're looking at an ASOS site, for like Asheville Airport, AVL, you can easily switch it to DFW or OUN or anywhere else to get that information. It's all there. If you go each of those, so a little technical note, all those repos have a README, but at the very bottom, there's a little button that says launch, and all you got to do is click it, and off you go. It installs everything you need. You don't have to download anything. You don't have to have a special browser. It should, in theory, just work. And this is also my social handle, so if you want to ask me questions, I'm happy to do it. So that's my first pick. My second pick, I'm going to get a little bit more emotional for this, because I have been thinking a lot about, being, post Helene here in Western North Carolina. To prepare being on here tonight, I've been listening to the episodes of WeatherBrains for the past few weeks. James Spann, I was really thinking about your comment last week about Plantersville, Alabama, about how it's a municipality, middle of nowhere, but high vulnerability. And there's a lot of that here in Western North Carolina as well. Everybody thinks about Asheville. We're the biggest city in Western North Carolina, but we weren't the only city affected by the hurricane. There's a little dinky town just west of here in Haywood County called Crusoe, North Carolina. And they have basically had a triple whammy over the past few years. Fred came through in 2021 and killed 6 people in that town alone. It's another unincorporated town. They were also affected by Helene. It's right next to the, oh my gosh, I can't remember. I think it's the Pigeon River. There was some flooding there. And then we had wildfires the past couple weeks here in Western North Carolina upstate. And there was a specific fire that was burning in Crusoe. So small town, not a lot of people have heard of it, but they're also affected by this. Folks with high vulnerability are they have a harder time recovering from these storms. So my second pick of the week is a YouTube clip. It's from a national news organization. It's from CBS News, but they highlight another dinky town in Western North Carolina that y'all may never have heard of. It's called Marshall, and Marshall is on the French Broad River, and the water that flows through Asheville flows into Marshall. So downtown Marshall was decimated. Lots of flooding. The downtown area was just gone. And I really appreciate, we had Good Morning America here in Asheville, and we had people come and talk about, the city, but CBS went to this stinky town and did a report. And I appreciate that, because it's just, again, it's those little small towns, those little rural towns with high vulnerability, but still people are still there. People are still affected by this. So that's my second pick of the week. And now I will really stop talking. Thank you all for having me. I really appreciate you doing this every week. Yeah, thanks.
Now we need to give Jared more time here. I mean, this is good stuff. But goodness, I love that. If you live in a small town, if you do not live in a city, is your life any less important than somebody that lives in a big city? I've never understood that bias in the weather enterprise here. But having said that, we have to wrap this thing up here. If you're new here, WeatherBrains is typically on the air Monday night at 7 o'clock Central. You can watch us live on YouTube, youtube.com/weatherbrains. Most of you listen, but send us an email. We've had so much email traffic here in the last few weeks. We love that. Email at weatherbrains.com, and be sure and put your email address and name in that so that everybody can respond. And we love hearing from you. So whether you watch, listen, thank you. On behalf of the entire WeatherBrains crew, I'm James Spann. Thanks for listening. Have a great week, and God bless. Dude, this was a good one.
It was great.
Great show.
Thanks, Jared, so much.
You rock. You're the greatest.
Jared.
Thanks.
You get me energized.
If I get ripped in a few weeks, can I come back and maybe get more than a $0 paycheck?
Yeah, exactly.
Somebody from
double it.
Somebody from NOAA Comms is trying to get in touch with you, by the way.
Yeah, really.
Rick Smith's going to give you a real check. A real check for Rick.
I'll pay you.
I'll check my personal email.